Here. Things are about to get freaky here, and I'm so ready for it. Do you remember the time when Johnny Depp was in every movie? Well, so do we. And I think it's been long enough since we ventured into the entertaining freakiness that's Johnny. This is 2012's Dark Shadows. Spoiler alert, while I might be giving you my opinion on the film, that's no substitute for watching it for yourself. Links to the film are in the description. As we watch a young Barnabas board a ship for America, he catches the eye of the servant girl, Angelique. He notices that everyone has their place, and he knows that not everyone's place is really a walk in the park. Once they reach Collinsport, his family tells him that family is really the only wealth worth anything. Yeah, that's easy to say when you're literally building a town and mansion on the hill. As they get older, Barnabas messes around with Angelique, but when she tries to get him to confess his love for her, he lets her down by saying that it would be a lie. This infuriates her, and she turns to witchcraft to rid Barnabas of his parents. He then turns to curses and dark magic to try and find out what happened. But he also falls in love with Josette. Well, Angelique doesn't take this lightly, and decides to curse Josette as well. Angelique places a spell on Josette, who in turn walks to Widow's Hill to throw herself from the cliff. Barnabas chases after her, but when he watches her fall to her death on the rocks below, Barnabas decides that he has nothing left to live for. He also falls to the rocks, but he finds himself still alive. Angelique has cursed him with the immortal life of a vampire. Well, obviously, when your crush doesn't love you back, you make him a vampire. In the eternity that he lives, he's bound to be with you at some point. But no, she decides that since she made him immortal, she'll have the townspeople bury him alive. Because there's no better way to show someone you care than to curse them and bury them. Remember that. As centuries pass, the time is 1972, and Victoria rides a train through the countryside as she goes to apply to be a governess. Once the train arrives, she catches a ride with some local hippies, and they take her through town until they arrive at the mansion. The estate's definitely not what it once was, but she marches down the long trail until she's on the steps to the front door. After knocking, Willie answers the door and lets her inside. Once inside, Victoria sees the state of the house, but soon Elizabeth makes her presence known, and she takes Victoria to the study so she can conduct the interview. Victoria asks about what happened to the boy's mother, and it turns out that Laura was lost at sea when David was only 5. I'd say that the family's definitely still cursed. This is the point where you decide if you really need a job. Are you willing to put yourself at risk here? Well, after meeting some of the rest of the family, I'd say the family has its own problems to deal with. If they were cursed, they wouldn't know how to handle it on top of their personality problems. Victoria meets Caroline, and when it's time to eat, she meets David's father, Roger. Then, Dr. Hoffman stumbles in and preaches like she knows all about Victoria. Look, Helena Bonham Carter's in a Tim Burton movie with Johnny Depp. I'm not complaining one bit. I still just find joy in pointing that out every time it happens. Eventually, David finally shows up, and it seems like he and Victoria are going to get along just fine after all. It turns out that David believes that his mother is still alive and talking to him somehow. Everyone thinks that he's crazy, but Victoria seems to sympathize with him. That night, Victoria is putting away her things when she's startled by a kid in a sheet in the hall. She thinks it's David at first, but when she gets closer, she finds Laura's dead spirit warning her that someone's coming. I'm sorry, why isn't Victoria concerned at all about seeing the specter? She literally follows her all the way to the living room like she follows spirits on a regular basis. This is just another Tuesday for her, I guess. Meanwhile, in the forest, a construction crew comes across Barnabas's coffin, and they cut the chains that are keeping the box shut. Suddenly, Barnabas emerges with a frightening quickness, and he feeds on all of the workers. After he leaves the forest, Barnabas is perplexed by all manners of modern technology. When he reaches the road, he ends up following a car all the way into town. Everything is strange to him, and he has no idea what's going on. Honestly, the 70s were probably one of the weirdest times for him to rise from the grave. Electricity wasn't a thing when he was alive, and now he's in the decade that threw electricity in everything and put a cool color shade on it. I would have gone back into the coffin and fallen back asleep. When Barnabas finally gets to the mansion, he finds Willie drinking and singing to the pumpkin patch. He puts him under a trance, and he makes sure that Willie will stay his loyal servant. Once inside, Barnabas acts as though Willie's never seen the inside of a mansion. But Willie's so used to everything. Barnabas gives him the grand tour of the living space, but he finds David and Carolyn relaxing by the fire. He introduces himself as their distant family, but Elizabeth brings him into the study to warn him away from playing jokes on the family. Barnabas assures her that he is who he claims to be, and he talks about the curse that's over the family. He promises to bring the Collins name back to its former glory. And he gives him a choice. He either stays and becomes the father that David needs, or he takes enough money to live comfortably away from everyone forever. Of course, the scumbag chooses the money, but David's probably better off this way. After David watches Roger leave the manor, he knocks into the ladder that Willie's using to work, and Barnabas ends up having to use his vampire speed to save David from the falling disco ball. When he suddenly catches on fire from the sunlight, everyone sees who he really is, and no one seems too keen on sharing any words with him. I'm sorry, Victoria can talk to ghosts on a regular basis like they're on speed dial, but a friendly vampire's too much? Get your priorities straight. Barnabas heads to Angie's office to convince her to make him human again, but she doesn't seem too keen to give him what he wants. After he admits to murder, he points out that it's only because of her, and she mentions that she'll send Victoria over the cliff just like Josette unless he agrees to rule by her side as partners and lovers. Barnabas, you may strategically place your wonderful lips upon my posterior and kiss it repeatedly. Who can set someone straight in Old English like Johnny Depp? No one, that's who. As he goes to leave, he finds that Angie has another coffin waiting for him, and she traps him in it. After throwing the coffin into a van, she casts a spell that ends up blowing up the Collins fishery before they drive off. The explosion can be seen from all over the town, and Angie takes Barnabas to a local cemetery, where she sets his coffin inside one of the mausoleums. She tells him that she's going to destroy everything he loves, and she leaves him there. Suddenly, Barnabas hears footsteps, and he calls out to the stranger. After asking how many centuries he's been locked up, he finds out that David is the one that rescues him, and it's only been 20 minutes. David tells him that everyone's watching the cannery burn, and he helps Barnabas get out. Back in town, Angie plays Barnabas' confession over the police's car radio, and she sends the townspeople after the Collins family. Willie? Fire! Murder! Angry mob! Run! That's all I need. Time to grab some jewels and start over in a new town. Why didn't they just leave town and start over earlier? They had plenty of jewels and fortune in that secret room. I would have taken it all and let Angie have that little podunk town. After hearing this, the family heads inside as they see Angie, the police, and the town show up. Elizabeth tries to stand up to them, but Barnabas turns himself in. Angie can't believe that he's escaped, but Barnabas agrees to come willingly if Angie goes with him. Suddenly, Angie starts throwing Barnabas and Willie around like they're stupid little bugs. The sheriff here is pretty smart, though. He understands that this is not his problem anymore. He didn't sign up for a supernatural showdown. He tells everyone to leave, and he's right behind them at this point. When Barnabas throws Angie up into Carolyn's bedroom, we find out Carolyn is actually a werewolf? What happened here and what's going on? In what universe do witches crack like porcelain dolls? To top it all off, when Angie has the house come alive and has pictures start laughing at Elizabeth, it was a next level kind of creepy that I really didn't expect from this movie, and I'm rather uncomfortable now. Angie's had enough of the games, and she has the house start to destroy the family. Suddenly, Carolyn leaps down and reveals her true form to everyone. Can I get a story behind why is this a thing? What awesome supernatural universe does this movie exist in? Speaking of origin story, apparently Angie sent a werewolf to Carolyn's crib to bite her as a baby. How did a werewolf gently nibble a baby enough to curse it and not eat it? Also, how did Carolyn make it this long without anyone finding out? Answers, please! After hearing Angie's confession about how she made everyone's life miserable, David reveals that his mother's going to destroy her. The ghost sends Angie flying, and the family escapes the raging inferno. When Barnabas kneels by Angie, she ends up retrieving her heart from her chest and offers it to him before it crumbles into tiny glass pieces. When Barnabas goes to find Victoria, David's mother tells them that she's at Widow's Hill. Barnabas rushes to the cliff to find Victoria ready to jump like Josette did. He holds her, but Victoria tells him that they can't be together if she's human. He refuses to change her, and she drops off the cliff. Afraid of history repeating, he falls after her and bites her on the way down. When she comes to, she's just like him. And they make out on the rocks before we see that Dr. Hoffman's actually alive underwater. Then the credits roll. I'm never gonna hate on a Tim Burton or Johnny Depp movie, so this is an absolute win from me. Give it a shot. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one.